Thank you, Kristen.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us.
I just want to do a shout out to our community online, and I know that a lot of Jerry people are out there, so hey, everyone.
Yeah, we're so thrilled. I think you said we did a little video during the workshop yesterday because the LGBTQ group was working together online, so we were all saying hi while we were all doing simultaneous work, mostly men's and women's circles during our work throughout this weekend that continues this afternoon. So, I want to talk a little bit about the divine masculine and feminine to frame this conversation, then we're going to talk more about it together. You hear about this, maybe you're deep into the work and this kind of idea of balancing and harmonizing. A lot of times we talk about oneness, right? In our teachings and teachings in other religions throughout the world, there's some ideas of oneness, in particular Sikhism and Hinduism, you hear that a lot about oneness. And so it's a beautiful concept, and it's something we touch, in our lives on occasion, that unitive kind of oneness consciousness. And the work really happens, though, in a more dualistic environment, right? Earth. We've come to Earth. It's a dualistic, there is dualism here. And so the work is really about that dance between the two. And so today we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about this idea that we often say, we all have masculine and feminine energy within us. We have gender expression on the outside, but we also, every one of us, male, female, and all the gender expressions in between, have masculine and feminine energy. So what does it really mean to take a deep dive into what it looks like when we're working that, when it's integrated, when it's out of balance or out of harmony? And we've got a couple of folks who've been doing this work for a very long time here to tell us more. So I look forward to learning even more from you two, and I hope all of you do too. So with that, I'd like to just start out with kind of the vision of what it can look like and what it could do for us if we were all doing more conscious awareness. I keep saying the word work. I want to say play, interplay, dance, movement between the innate masculine and feminine. So I'm going to turn that over to you two to see if you could help us with a little bit of a vision of why are we doing this? Where are we headed?
Good morning, everyone. Still morning, right?
Yes.
For me, wholeness is when my masculine and my feminine energy are not fighting internally for dominance. It's more of we heard earlier a dance or the infinite sign. I picture it like a gender river of life that flows with the masculine and the feminine, that there are elements that are soft and tender, the water, but then we have the rock and things, and the rock is not arguing with the water because one is soft and the other is hard. But there's this coexisting in harmony, in a delicate balance between the two, in which there is no fight, there's no internal fight between the masculine and feminine.
Just take that in, huh? If we lived in a world like that, and we do, we can. Actually, that is beloved community. And I think when Max and Annette were up here, Max noticed and said, this is beloved community, and it's a dance, and it's a working with conscious intention to step into that dance together. It's a multifaceted universe, and we're all jewels on that Indra's net, if you know Indra's net, with the jewels on the net. And each one of us is a facet there. And you said it, Kristen, when we come into this manifest realm, there's a duality that happens. And masculine and feminine and masculine is just one general divine duality, polarity of that, right? Archetypally. And there's many. There's cold and hot. There's the nature with birds and animals. They're living that duality. All of us are. There's cold and hot. There's rigid and soft. There's spicy and juicy and sweet. How's that? And so we live that. That's our incarnational experience. And yet, coming to a place with conscious awareness of how that unfolds in our life is key. And I think in the expression of this world today, with gender non-binary and fluidity, gender fluidity, and trans in particular, and queer, that is all an expression of trying to come into more wholeness and oneness and bringing us there. And in our work, and I'm going to talk more personally, but I just want to say in that is the alchemy. It is what you're experiencing this weekend that you're naming, Kristen, and it's what several of the participants who are here today are experiencing, hopefully, is to say, yes, I show up in my female body and I identify as a woman. Ugo identifies as a man. And we show up in that and we work to come into deeper understanding, deeper respect, deeper reverence, higher reverence of one another in those dualities, to meet each other, to come into a place of alchemy, of wholeness, and transcend this into the oneness. So an example of that from my own life, and it was actually my first workshop 25 years ago, and we do a process called Grof breathwork. Holotropic breathwork, some of you may know it. It's an inward journey with taking the breath, which is spirit, the breath, to take you inward on a transformative experience usually. And it go into territories of the unknown, unconscious with it, that bring it to consciousness. And my first experience was immediately my mother came on my left side, my father on my right side, and I felt this split. My parents are divorced when I was 12, 13 years old, and it was a confusing time. Now, I was 40 when I had my breathwork experience, but I felt that split, and I realized in this experience, my mother was very strong, powerful woman. My father was, she was stronger in many ways, and I learned that than my father, and I didn't quite know what masculine looked or felt or what it was in me, because the modeling there was not clear. And when I did my breath work, it was definitely a split. So in my process of the breath work, eventually it came into that integration. And I experienced the earth within me in the center and a flower growing from that. And when I came out of that experience, it was a 2 or 3 hour journey. I realized that's my work. And my mother's story around men, which she loved men in some ways, and she also had challenging relationships, was not my story. And my father's story was not my story. It was an integration of two, and my work was bringing that together to figure out what my story was. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you want to say anything more, Ugo, about the why? Why are we even having this conversation? Why is it important to integrate the masculine and feminine?
I am glad you asked.
Oh, good.
Imagine how boring it would be, how much we would be missing if we were abiding in only one side and missing the beauty of the spectrum of integration of emotions and structure and day and night, sun and moon, and all that entails, the masculine and the feminine. As Cynthia said, one of my 5 favorite words, one of them is reverence. My studio is called Pacha. Pacha means, it's a short for Pachamama, which means Mother Earth. And some of my friends asked me, said, why are you calling your studio a female? Why don't you call it Father Sky, the masculine? And I'm like, no, that's boring. If there is no feminine, if there is no Pachamama, then there's nothing. So part of my work, and especially based on my conditioning growing up, which is very different than what I'm doing now, and I make it a conscious effort to be in reverence and in service of the feminine. So therefore, I give that priority to the feminine energy, especially being an heterosexual male and having that privilege. I like to make sure that I make room and I welcome and I embrace and bring that equity of not only men and women strictly, but in the wider range of gender identity and expressions. All human beings have those 2 energies. So that's the work, is to bring that equity to all of us as human beings.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I know Ugo and Cynthia appreciate the applause, and maybe we'll just wait until the very end and give them a nice, really warm, so we can cover more ground. More Pachamama. Yeah. So you both touched on the vision, the kind of why we want to do this, and a little bit of your personal experiences. Can you say a little bit more about how personally you become aware of your own times when you feel integrated or more whole in these aspects of masculine and feminine, and maybe when you feel more out of balance or out of harmony? And what does that feel like? What does that look like for each of you individually? And I imagine it's maybe changed over time too, so.
Yeah. You okay? Yeah. This is part of our gender work, yielding and going forward and back. I mean, it truly is. It's part of we train ourselves in a new way of being with one another. And when Ugo and I or any of our facilitators facilitate together, he gives me space to speak and yields, and then I give him space to speak, and we try to be more equitable and equal in that. And that's an unusual thing if you watch that, and I'm sure some of us have noticed that in things. So even here, I just want to say, sitting this way, there was a consciousness in my mind about Ugo being in the center of the 2 of us. It might have felt out of balance if he was over here. Mm-hmm. So just those little conscious awarenesses as we go through life is so important. So, ways that it's been out of balance. Well, just the other day, my husband Will and I, we work together. We have our organization. It's mission-based. It's in service. We have a deep meditation practice. We're very connected, and we can just be in that kind of outward mode to get things done, to bring love and light and harmony and balance into this world that's so needed. And so we get into that mode, and then we just become like coworkers all of a sudden, because we're in that drive, which is really important, which some might categorize that as more masculine or more alpha. It's so important to be in that mode. Like if you got to get something done, you got to get a mission out there, you got to write a book, you need that. I don't care what gender you are, you need it. And then you also need the omega to take a pause and rest and soften. And so the other day, we were kind of getting things done, and I realized within myself, just inwardly, I don't feel as connected to him. I don't feel as loving. I feel like I'm in this work mode. And I just paused and I said to him, I just am aware of this and I want to soften with you. I want to be in a place of softness. Not all the time. I've got to be in that will. But I can also be driving and having my will come and also be soft. And that's the work, isn't it? How do we do that together? And so, yeah, that's one example. I'll make some space here, and you can, and maybe there's more to come. I'm sure there's. It's that incarnational work that I have to do. It's just part of my inward mission, and that's just real quickly. That's an aspect. There's the inward masculine and feminine, and work to do, and then how does that come out in the outer beloved community or in the world? And both of those are true. How does it manifest in the world? So I just gave that example. I realized it inside, and then I spoke it to him, and I'm going to try to actually soften more and be aware of that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Cynthia. For me, it has become easy to identify when I am in wholeness and center. My body will send me very loud alarms, physical tension, a clenching of my jaw, tightening of my legs, and things that will trigger that it's time to, I don't know if any of you like gardening here, anybody does a little garden? So I do gardening to this body. Every week, if I don't move, 2-3 times a week at least, I start becoming a little creature of a monkey type. And I know that, so I'm careful of cultivating and cleansing my energies, doing a practice. My meditation is very important. Moving my body is anchor. And when I'm at ease, when I'm close to my center, to that balance of the masculine and the feminine, I have that clarity, that peace. When if I make a mistake, I'm laughing at myself, I know I'm good. I know I'm okay. But if I start self-criticizing or becoming too stiff or hardening, becoming more like executional, like you were saying, Cynthia, of like, let's do this, let's get it done, and disconnect from maybe the impact that my actions may have on the people around me, then that's when I know I have to go back to weeding that garden and bringing it back to center.
Yeah, you both speak to, cultural, very cultural kind of way of being, right? That, and I can relate to your examples as well. And that, as you said, that masculine, executive, doer kind of energy that exhausts us as a culture and doesn't give space to the softness, to the kindness, to the openness, to the beingness, the recognition. That is the big picture of what's going on in the world to a great degree. I mean, we could think of a lot of other examples, but you both happen to use those examples for your own personal experience. So how about on the flip side? What does it feel like to you when you're in that really integrated space? Do you want to say anything more about that? You feel like you've touched on that, but if you want to add anything to what's it feel like when it's really like, I'm in that balanced, whole, harmonious kind of space?
Yeah, sure. Please.
So before I answer that question, you touched on something that's super important too, in the collective, right? Because one thing is on an individual level, that balance and harmony between the masculine and feminine, but how does that imbalance shows up out there? The inequities, the aggression, the violence that we experience, and the impact that has in each one of us, and how important it is to create, to have a beloved community. Like, I feel like I'm living a dream here, being part of this beautiful community, and we need more communities like this. And by being centered and balanced with the masculine and feminine, we can co-create and expand our circle of love, of oneness, of wholeness across our communities and beyond. So when I am in that place of centeredness, everything becomes clear. My mission, my intention, my purpose, doing, the sacred conversations that we have, like the ones we do now, we are doing in our workshop here with the Jerry workshop that we're having, the opportunity to witness a circle of men and women and people of all gender identities and expressions to come to a circle and share their truth and being able to witness that, and the fuel that injects into my soul to continue doing my work. For me, it's impossible to go back to the Hugo I was even 3 days ago after the experience that I've just had yesterday and the day before here. So the collective, it starts with the self, of course, but the impact and the ramifications of the community are super important. So you were asking about why is this important, and yeah, it will be boring, but also super important that for that expansion of that co-creation, that birthing of this new world that we all want and see, and we have already inside.
Thank you.
I'll just add a little bit to that. That's important to me right now is we need to address the injustices. We need to address the traumas within us, to not bypass that, not do spiritual bypass, but to really address them. And we need to co-create the new civilization on earth. And that can be done in beloved community. Both are true. So I just really appreciated what you said about the new world. And we can get stuck in the past, and yet we need to heal that. We need to address it. We need to acknowledge it. We need some accountability for things that have happened, but not to cycle around there, but to realize that is an important piece of it. And we're doing the new creation now. We're creating that right now. It's not in the future. It's here now.
Yeah, thank you. So maybe just to go a little further with the examples you've just given of feeling out of balance or in balance or harmony, and what practices you each might have that you could offer, because sometimes we hear about a new practice or we get reminded of something that we've done in the past that has really worked well for us when we hear about what people do in their, not just your individual practices, maybe also in the Jerry work or whatever you want to say about that. What practices help you practice awareness so that you can have these experiences of being, feeling more integrated?
So I have a meditation practice, of silent contemplative practice. And I also have a mantra practice of repetition of the holy name. Saint Teresa of Avila speaks about that, praying unceasingly. So whatever that sacred word or phrase is for you, or affirmation, is to pray that silently throughout the day. And so bookending your day with meditation in the morning and evening with holy name practice or mantra practice in between. That's my practice, pretty much. I was sitting with the question, Kristen, and I was thinking, when I'm sitting in meditation, thinking about it with masculine and feminine. First of all, Jetsun Matinson Polmo, who's a Tibetan nun, she's in her 80s now, she says, when you're in bed and it's morning time and you want to get up to meditate, but that bed is feeling so good. You don't say, should I get out of bed? you say, it's time to get out of bed. Just do it. That is that willful, direct, more masculine way, if you put it in the category. So get out of bed, do the meditation, do your practice, do my practice. And then as I sit in meditation, and we did it this morning, the song and the surrender, surrendering to, opening myself to receive. And if you think about male and female bodies, the penetration of a male body into a female body is that. If sexually, I'm just going to say it, in sexual intimate exchange, a woman opens her body to receive. And that's heterosexual. But it's the same in same-sex relationships, that you open yourself to receive your partner. It's the same if you don't have a partner, and you're receiving yourself, you're receiving the divine in that time. So that's really important, I think, for me, to think about how my words, God is flowing in me in his self, herself, their self, itself. And this is what I heard. I hear it in Unity all the time. That's what we talk about. Open yourself. In contemplative prayer, there's centering prayer. It's the welcoming prayer. Welcome it all in. And trust that you will be guided. And so I will be guided, so surrendering to that. And that is the feminine in many ways, if I'm going to put it in categories, I guess, in the duality of it. I'll complete here by saying that, again, in my relationship with Will, which is part of my wholeness, my coming into more wholeness. In my past relationships, I wasn't whole in my whole self. I was meeting, you mentioned it earlier in the earlier service, of meeting people halfway. I'm the partner, half the partner. But with Will, I am a whole. I'm more whole. He's more whole, and we meet each other in that wholeness, which is our oneness. And that's really important. So we actually have practices we do together. Gratitude practices, and try to do that each day of what we're grateful for with each other. And then breath practices together, so it's not just I'm here and he's there, but we learn to breathe together. So it's a flow of oneness in that intimacy.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what you're just talking about now, in partnership, that's really beautiful. And in community, that's really beautiful. We meditate together all the time. We are opening to that energy all the time together. And that's that kind of practice as well. So thank you for sharing that.
And with that, it is much harder to violate each other or to have rifts, or even if you get into an argument or something, you've got a commitment to work through it. You go into gratitude, you go into the breath together, and you call in something larger than yourself that can help you transform it. But it is a practice. You've got to show up each day for it.
Yeah.
Wow. And now I have to say something interesting. That was beautiful, Cynthia, truly. Thank you for your sharing. Well, I'll tell you my secret. Deep breath in and deep breath out. That's where I go if I'm striving out. And this is little, like the ordinary magic and the miracle of life that is with us all the time. If we were not breathing, we're done. Sayonara. So that's the beginning and the end, the anchor, and the energy of masculine and feminine in the inhale and the exhale, and that harmony. So coming to the breath is key. Ritual practice, affirmations in the morning. I do an offering to my ancestors when I wake up, and I have a ritual around coffee and prayer. They did like coffee too. Those who know me, I'm a caffeine. I sweat caffeine. Yes, the coffee is also a spiritual ritual for me, and it brings me closer to their energy.
This is really true. I have witnessed it.
Holy coffee.
So, yeah, the breathing, the affirmations, the ritual, the discipline, there is a magic on the repetition. It's important to have a consistency of the practice. That's when the strength, that invisible muscle of awareness and presence that comes from repeating the affirmations every day, into doing some movement, I'm not going to tell you, I sit in my cushion for 45 minutes every day. Sometimes I do 5 minutes, sometimes I do 10, sometimes I literally take 3 breaths and continue, but holding that awareness of presence, of balance, or how do I want to show up for the people in my life. And it's all centered in that intention, the intention and the consistency of the practice.
Thank you.
I just thank you for the ancestors, and I just want to name that these are indigenous practices. You know, even our Jerry work are indigenous practices that Western, especially Western people, are just getting up to speed on in some ways, you know. So I just want to honor the peoples before us of hundreds and thousands of years before us that have been doing deep work like this. It's borrowed in some ways by our current times, yeah.
And in the words of my beloved teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, in the book Living Buddha, Living Christ, he said, mango is nice, and so is banana. So why do we get stuck in one particular fruit where there are so many fruits in the world and we can try? I'm talking about integration of religious and spiritual beliefs. And then I don't like to get entangled in a specific name. It's all the same: love, God, the oneness. You can name it however you want. But it's that combination of, and the beauty of being able to pull from different spiritual traditions what works for me individually, and how I can become a more spiritually rich human being by trying all those exotic fruits that are out there.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful. I like that you brought up the indigenous peoples and the traditions and the knowing that has always been with, it seems, across many of those traditions. And of course, Annette knows that well from the tradition that she has studied. And then it brings me back to the origin of the Jerry work, where, you know, do you want to say something about the ecology connection?
Sure. So Will founded this work 33 years ago. He's an environmental mathematical physicist by training, and he was working in the environmental community around climate change. And basically, the older men were hitting on the younger women, and the younger women were leaving in this organization. Me Too has existed long before it became more public, a few years ago, of course. So he and a few other colleagues said, we need to address this. So they create a forum to have the truth spoken by not only the women, but the men. And when they did the work, what was unleashed was intense and much larger than the actual workshop form that they created could hold. The container wasn't strong enough. We're talking thousands of years of injustice, oppression, and it's not just with women. It is more pronounced with women. It's probably definitely perhaps more pervasive, I think, with women and girls, but it's across the board with men and people of all gender identities. So several of the people there, most of the people said, we need to put this lid back on Pandora's box. We have an earth to save. Let's get out there and save it. And Will and his colleagues said, no, this is at root cause. And they came up with the title Gender and Ecology with the byline of, are there parallels between the exploitation of the earth and the exploitation of the feminine? And that's where the work got started. And then we started getting more and more invitations from universities and nonprofits, pastors, clergy, universities, I said that. And so we just started accepting the invitations, and the work has spread now into a whole global community and training organization, which we're very grateful for.
We're thrilled that, we're one of the first, I think, there's a few unities who have hosted this work, and it's going to catch like wildfire, I'm pretty sure. So, and hopefully we'll bring you all back again so the people who didn't get to be a part of the intensive can be a part of that next time around. But so very grateful for the two of you, for Annette and Max, and for on behalf of the entire team and Will and everybody else who's doing this. And just want to give you an opportunity if there's any final words you want to add before we close.
I want to thank you and thank the community. Thank you for your trust of bringing us, for having us here. And thank you everyone for the warm welcome. And I am deeply, deeply humbled to be here and share with you, and honored. So thank you so much.
Well, what's coming to me at this moment is, as a little girl who grew up in the 60s in Tulsa, Oklahoma, one of my mentors, teachers, was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I held a prayer, even though I was raised by atheists. I didn't call it a prayer, that was not allowed in my family, but it was a prayer that the more people that I got to know who were different than me, the closer I would come to God. And a few years ago, I was sitting in South Africa in a circle of people who were all different than me, who had different culture, different skin color, different languages. And I realized that prayer had become truth. And I didn't go out and get an education for it. That is the practice, right? And that is also a deep practice for me.
Thank you. Well, let's consider for a moment what we're up to here and try to bring it all together in a couple of affirmations of what we carry with us from here. And, in a way, it's the beginning of a dialogue, it's the continuation of a dialogue, and that dialogue is not just in the outer, but in the inner, the deep spiritual work that is happening inside of us as well, just by being witness and listening today and taking in what's touching us. So let's affirm together this idea that as we do this work, we are blessing ourselves, we are blessing other beings, we are blessing the earth. It's that important of work, that you are really influencing the world and the earth in a positive way, moving us toward oneness when you do individual and beloved community work. So let's say our affirmations together. I bless myself, all beings, and the earth in harmony with the innate divine feminine and masculine. I am wholly one. So it is.